Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland was in Calgary discussing how the Canadian government will hold Putin to account for the atrocities in Ukraine. We have more striking images of the devastation in Ukraine, including how Russia's upping its offensive on weapons factories and railways. And we hear from our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, who talks about where millions of Ukrainian war refugees are fleeing to.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland was in Calgary recently, saying it's appropriate to declare Russia's occupation of Ukraine a genocide. Thousands of Ukrainians have reportedly been killed and brutalized since Russia invaded the country on February the 24th. Russian President Vladimir Putin has gone on record saying he wants to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine.
War crimes have been committed in Ukraine. They are being committed in Ukraine. The evidence that we've seen in Bucha and other parts of Ukraine that have been under Russian occupation is absolutely horrifying. And I do want to take a moment to underscore that one of the things that is happening is the systematic rape of Ukrainian women and children. Rape is being used as a weapon in this war, and I want the women of Ukraine to know that we see them, we are not going to forget, and we will work with Ukraine and with our democratic allies around the world to bring the perpetrators to justice.
Military analysts say Russia is increasing its strikes on weapons factories, railways, and other infrastructure targets across Ukraine in order to wear down the country's ability to resist a major ground offensive in the Donbas region. Russian forces launched missile attacks on Lviv and other targets across Ukraine earlier today, killing at least 7 people. Lviv has seen sporadic attacks for the past couple of months and had become a haven for civilians. It is also a major conduit for weapons and other supplies coming from NATO countries and for foreign fighters joining the fight against Russia. Switzerland is the latest country joining the international community in imposing tough sanctions against Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. Government officials say, however, that their country still has not abandoned its traditional neutrality. They said, though, however, as well, that Switzerland has strongly denounced the war and urged Russia to immediately halt its invasion. Smashed houses, charred rubble, and destroyed military equipment littered the streets of Chernihiv, a city located around 110 kilometers northeast of Kyiv. Now that Russian forces have pulled out, locals are emerging and combing through the ruins. One resident who fought for the Soviet army in Afghanistan told how troops ransacked his house, found his old uniform and medals, and then taunted him. The Russians withdrew at the start of April as part of a redeployment of forces.
Он говорит, я знаю, что вы офицер запаса. Вони посмотрели, у меня еще форма парадная была, висели там медали и так далее. И одну медаль за боевые заслуги они забрали. Я говорю, ну от забирай, я говорю, і покажеш там на родині, як ти, говорю, воював за Україну.
Tears ran down the face of Victoria Kovalenko as she tried to watch a video of her 12-year-old daughter Veronica's funeral. The family's car was allegedly hit with a Russian shell when they were fleeing Chernihiv on the 9th day after the invasion. Victoria's 12-year-old daughter and husband Petro were killed in the attack.
Не могу, слезы не дают посмотреть. Звучал взрыв, разбилось стекло заднее, и стеклом поранило голову. Еще маленькие осколки вот здесь, ну, там 3 или 4.
Песка наелась, молодец.
Когда пошла кровь, она увидела, она испугалась, начала плакать. Я ее пыталась успокоить, а потом муж крикнул: «Выходите с машины». Вот, и я когда уже выходила за ней, я не пошла в дверь направо, я пошла за ней, то она уже лежала возле машины, уже без головы. Я это четко все увидела, как кровь в шее, вот так вот.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with military personnel of the State Service for Special Communications and Information Protection over the weekend and presented them with state medals. Zelensky thanked the military members for their service, wished them good health, and noted that their families could be proud of their work. The United Nations says close to 5 million people have now fled the war in Ukraine. Trucks and other vehicles carrying humanitarian aid were seen lined up at the Polish border.
З вчорашньої години, з 2 годин дня.
Як думаєте, скільки вам тут?
Ну, тут все залежить, як стоїть спереді поліція. І вони пропускають багато машин легкових. І поміж легкових вони пускають нас. Бо кажуть, що там не можна проїхати, бо немає місця.
А чи думаєте, така велика?
Що на кордоні все, немає місця на кордон, щоб заїхати.
Dozens of volunteers in Lviv's humanitarian aid center are racing to deliver emergency food supplies to many cities in need across Ukraine.
Our center sends humanitarian assistance to people living in the eastern part of Ukraine and on the north, on the territories where active hostilities are taking place. Also, our headquarters sends humanitarian aid to our military, who are fighting against Russian aggression. And we are one of the centers in Lviv that provides help to internally displaced persons who fled to Lviv from rockets and air bombing.
You know, we so often hear of Christian humanitarian agencies helping out in Ukraine during the devastating war taking place in Europe. Well, Youth with a Mission ship Switzerland recently purchased a former naval vessel in Scotland and is converting it into a medical ship. Officials say it will provide vital dental care to some of the most unreached communities in Madagascar.
Youth with a Mission Switzerland is set to launch its latest outreach vessel to Madagascar, where the need for better access to dental care is urgent. The former Royal Naval vessel is currently being converted into a medical ship in Conway in North Wales in the UK, before setting sail for the East African nation. Retired ship's captain David Warden Owen explains how God has brought together a remarkable team to work on this vessel.
We had so much interest from the walking public and people coming forward offering their services, and we've now got we're in a position to be able to do the complete restoration and build on the accommodation and the facilities that are required, the medical facilities that will be required in Madagascar.
The ship's captain, Jeremy McWilliam, explains how this ship will enable them to provide vital medical treatment in some of the hardest to reach parts of Madagascar.
To get dental treatment on the east side of Madagascar is very difficult. You know, for a basic abstraction or something like that, you'd have to travel by boat, by car, by Land Rover to get to the nearest dentist. Whilst this vessel should be able to get right up into those remote communities and provide a very high standard of dental treatment, eye treatment, basic surgery and things like that in these really remote communities. So that's where the need is.
And the crew is on target to complete their work in time for the island reach to fulfill its mission to Madagascar later this year. Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
Great job, Youth with a Mission. Nice to see. Orare Benkata was riding the subway to work on Tuesday morning in New York City. He was just a few meters away from the man police say detonated smoke bombs, then began shooting. He described his harrowing ordeal from the hospital while he recovers from his injuries.
Once I got on the N train, I was transferring from the R to the N on 59. And I go in a regular day with my phone in my hand, looking at my phone. I had my headphones on. I sit down and the guy's sitting right next to me up to the right. And there's a door between us only. So 10 seconds after the door closes, he throws a smoke bomb, it goes off, and then some kind of fireworks. And then once the train was black filled with smoke, that's when he started firing shots. I don't know. He had like a mask on, so I just had a quick glimpse at him. I just saw like an MTA vest and like duffel bags on the floor, but I thought he was just a regular MTA worker or construction guy.
Nova Scotians paused at noon today and will again on Tuesday to remember the 22 people killed in a mass shooting 2 years ago. The RCMP has been criticized for not warning residents that a shooter was on the loose. Flags on public buildings are flying at half-mast. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston has said legislation will be introduced in the fall to establish the dates of the shootings as provincial days of remembrance. Houston read aloud the names of the 22 victims as he addressed the legislature. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is reporting more outbreaks of bird flu in both Alberta and Saskatchewan. Avian influenza was identified late last week in 3 poultry flocks in Alberta and 2 in Saskatchewan. Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada says the industry is making adjustments to maintain supplies of poultry and eggs in the face of a large outbreak of avian flu in Canada and around the world. A settlement agreement will see utility provider ATCO Electric pay a $31 million administrative penalty. An investigation by the Alberta Utilities Commission found that ATCO deliberately overpaid a First Nation for work on a new transmission line. It then failed to disclose the reasons for the overpayment when it applied to be reimbursed by ratepayers for an extra cost. The agreement must still be approved by the Utilities Commission. Coal mining in Alberta's eastern Rockies has been a topic of contention over the past several years. But according to Crow's Nest Pass Mayor Blair Painter, coal mining in Canada is an ethical way to extract Alberta's resources. He says the coal specifically available in the Crow's Nest Pass region is premium metallurgical coal used for steelmaking.
There are only 5 or 6 places in the world where this quality of coal exists. So we would be naive to say that our world, our global industry will not have a demand for steel. So it's a matter of choice. Where do you want to get the coal to make this product? Do you want to get it out of a country that has no ethics when it comes to natural resources and our environment? Or should we use our resources here in Canada where it can be mined ethically? We can look after the environment and provide a commodity that is needed on a worldwide level.
You can hear more of our interview with Crow's Nest Pass Mayor Blair Painter talking about coal mining in the Rockies coming up in the second half of our show. The Manitoba Chambers of Commerce is bringing back a tourism rebate after giving out just over $2 million in refunds last year. The program is designed to boost local tourism spending by encouraging Manitobans to spend their vacations in the province. This year, the eligible dates to claim rebates are May 6th through the 16th. This can be done by booking a hotel or motel stay in the province or by attending one of the province's designated tourist attractions. A radio fundraiser in Saskatchewan has raised over $400,000 for Stars Air ambulance operations in the province. On April 13th and 14th, radio stations in Saskatchewan shared stories of how patients have been given a second chance at life thanks to Stars and its supporters. It was the second annual Critical Care in the Air Radiothon. The funds will help purchase items such as new ultrasound machines for the helicopters, which officials say can become the equivalent of flying intensive care units. SpaceX Crew 4 arrived at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The launch is currently targeted for early Sunday.
Boy, we are so excited to be here. Excited to be here with this crew, with this team, the flight crew and the team here at Kennedy Space Center, team all over the country with our international and commercial partners. Just so excited to be here. And what an amazing time to be a part of human spaceflight. As we were coming in for the landing, we had the opportunity to fly and take a look at the pad, and right next to our pad, the SLS rocket is sitting there. A moon rocket is sitting there in preparation for its launch coming up here in the next couple of months. We just welcomed home Mark Vandehei from a record-setting space station expedition. We're looking forward to getting the Axiom crew, a private astronaut crew, home, Crew 3, and we have a Boeing launch with OFT-2 coming up. So absolutely amazing to be in that mix and looking forward to our own launch. We've been training for many, many months, and we're seeing all those boxes getting checked off, and it's very exciting now to have this box checked off. We're here at Kennedy Space Center looking forward to our launch here in the very near future.
A new Christian movie is coming out called The Case for Heaven. Investigative journalist Lee Strobel explores evidence of the afterlife inspired by his own brush with death. He wrote a book about it, and it's now being made into a film. As we hear in this next story, the movie will answer one of life's biggest questions. If there is a heaven, can we prove it?
The best-selling author of The Case for Christ is now on a mission to give evidence for the afterlife. Lee Strobel explains how his own close brush with death prompted him to write his latest book, as well as have it made into a movie called The Case for Heaven.
When the doctor looked down at me and said, "You're one step away from a coma, 2 steps away from dying." And so I lingered there between life and death until they were able to save my life. And that was a very clarifying experience, because when you're on the verge of death like that, you want to know for sure what happens if I close my eyes for the last time in this world. So we're very excited about the impact it can have to give people hope that there is indeed hope, that this life is not all there is.
The documentary film, which includes the stories of people who've had near-death experiences, was produced and directed by Manny Sandoval.
Truly, I want people to leave something behind in the theater. I hope it's their doubts, their questions, maybe some of the pain that they've suffered. You know, everyone has a unique experience, and I pray that the film really, truly meets people where they're at and allows them to maybe have one less question and actually have one more answer.
And churches are being encouraged to give their own screenings for The Case for Heaven. Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
Looks like an interesting movie. Well, we enjoyed a nice spring-like day in Lethbridge, and the warmer temperatures will continue. Complete weather details are on deck. We had sunshine mixed with cloud today, and not a bad day overall as we got up to 10 degrees. Tonight, expect more clouds to roll into southwestern Alberta with a low near -3. Tuesday, mainly cloudy with a high near 9. Wednesday, a lot of the clouds should clear out, and we should see high near 8 degrees. A slight chance of flurries developing early Thursday, and then the mercury should climb to 9 degrees. Friday, expect a mixture of sun and cloud, and it should warm up to 12. Saturday, lots of sunshine and a high of 13. Sunday, even warmer with the mercury climbing to a balmy 15 degrees. Now, the average high for this time of year is 14 degrees and an average low of 0. The highest temperature in this state was recorded back in 1952 at 26 degrees, and the record low was -14 in 1951. The sun rose at 6:33 and set at 8:28. Let's see how Tuesday's looking across the country now. Expect showers and 10 degrees in Victoria, a good chance of rain and 10 for Vancouver. Expect light snow and +2 for Edmonton. Rain mixed with snow and +2 as well for Calgary. Periods of light snow and -1 for Regina on Tuesday. Snow and +1 for Saskatoon. Winnipeg should see some of the white stuff as well and a high near +1. In the central part of the country, rain and 5 degrees is on tap for Toronto. Snow mixed with rain and a high of 5 degrees as well for Ottawa. Snow mixed with rain and 3 degrees for Montreal on Tuesday. In Atlantic Canada, expect rain and 9 degrees in Fredericton. Heavy rain and 8 degrees in Halifax. Periods of light rain and 5 is on tap for Charlottetown. And in St. John's, you should see sun mixed with cloud and a high of 6 degrees on Tuesday. Small business owners are pleading with Ottawa for more help in paying off their pandemic-related debts as another wave of COVID-19 cases is causing customers to stay home and sales to fall. It's a request that Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland faced repeatedly on her cross-country post-budget tour. Her response has been that emergency measures are no longer needed with the crisis past, the economy running hot, and the government needed to tighten its financial belt. WonderFi Technologies has announced plans to purchase Coinberry and a deal that will put 2 of Canada's registered crypto trading platforms under one umbrella. WonderFi says the acquisition is valued at around $38.6 million in stock. It says it will add another $100 million in assets under custody with the purchase of Coinberry, which received regulatory approval 8 months ago. The agreement comes a few weeks after WonderFi closed a deal to buy BitBuy Technologies, which is a Toronto-based cryptocurrency exchange. Twitter's board of directors says it has adopted a so-called poison pill defense in order to protect it from coercive and unfair takeover tactics. The company disclosed new details about the move in a filing on Monday after Tesla CEO Elon Musk offered to buy the company for around $43 billion US. In the filing, Twitter's board says the shareholder rights agreement would impose a significant penalty on any person or group of investors who acquired 15% or more of the company's shares without board approval. Musk currently owns 9% of Twitter shares. Bank of America posted a 12% decline in first quarter profits from a year earlier. Industry experts say it's much lower decline than its rivals reported last week. The second largest bank in the United States was helped by higher net interest income and no noticeable exposure to Russian assets. The North Carolina bank says it earned around $7.1 billion US compared with $8.05 billion a year earlier. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 22 points on the day to finish at 21,878. The Dow was down 39 points to 34,411. The S&P 500 was down almost a point to 4391, and the Nasdaq was down 18 points on the day to 13,332. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.26 to 108.21 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 52 cents to 7.82 US. Gold was down a cent to 1978.91 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at 25.86 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $13.96 per bushel, barley's at $9.69, canola's at $26.10, and corn is at $11.99 per bushel. Live cattle were down 20 cents to 140.48, feeder cattle were down 2.43 to 155.78, and lean hogs June contract is up 3.93 to 122.40. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.27 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the United Nations International Organization for Migration says around 5 million people have now fled Ukraine since the war with Russia began on February the 24th. The UN warned Monday of increased risks to both women and children refugees who say they're being exploited. The UN also says around 215,000 migrant workers and students have also fled Ukraine for neighboring countries. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have the latest from Ukraine, including how chemical weapons were allegedly found by the Ukrainian military after the Russian military pulled out of the Sumi region of the country. Lisa will have details shortly. But first, here's a look at some of the events happening in and around Lethbridge.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Discover unique gift ideas at the Old Man River Potters Guild annual spring sale, taking place April 28th and 29th from noon to 8 p.m. and the 30th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. See what local pottery artists have been creating: mugs, planters, decor, dishware, and so much more. The spring sale is at the Potters Guild Studio and Gallery at 4416 First Avenue South. For more information about the Guild and classes that they offer, visit oldmanriverpottersguild.com. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is looking for volunteers to take part in their Drive Happiness program. This program is to help seniors in our community who are facing extreme loneliness due to lack of accessible transportation. Volunteers will drive clients to their medical appointments, pick up groceries, and take them to important life activities. If you're interested in this opportunity and for more information, call 403-332-4320 or email volunteer@volunteerlethbridge.com.
The war between Ukraine and Russia is now into its second month. Ukrainian fighters who've been fighting inside of the shattered city of Mariupol were offered an ultimatum by the Russian military: surrender or die. To discuss this in more detail, what's happening in Ukraine, along with other big stories from around the world, is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, this resistance or group of Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol are fighting to protect a strategically vital port.
Yes, and you know, these are the glimmers of hope that we get through these stories of Ukrainian fighters not willing to back down, not willing to surrender, regardless of what's going on, and how harshly the Russians come through. They have maintained their dignity and been able to continue fighting. But the sad part is that they ultimately do have to surrender, and they ultimately are outnumbered and outmaneuvered, and they don't have the means, the manpower, the the strategy, or the know-how to fight off a large army like the Russians. And so we have stories like this. They give us some hope, and they give us a perspective as to the resilience or the national pride that the Ukrainians have. But ultimately, these aren't the happy ending stories that we hope to hear.
Now, a Ukrainian mayor over the weekend says the remains of chemical weapons were found after Russian troops withdrew from the northern Sumi region of Ukraine. The weapons were classified as a nerve agent, and according to the Centers for Disease Control in the United States, some of the most toxic around.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the markers we have been waiting for here is to see if chemical weapons were in fact used or not. This is almost like the red line that was drawn by the Obama administration regarding Syria, and now we have the Biden administration giving the same kind of warning as to, don't use chemical weapons or else. And now, so day in and day out, we're waiting to see if chemical weapons were in fact used, and the Ukrainians know this. So we have not verified whether or not chemical weapons have been used, but according to this mayor, that this is what was left behind, and as you said, the CDC opined as well as to what was left behind. If in fact this is true, it was this nerve agent that was used. What will happen if Russia does use chemical weapons? And that's really the question. What recourse does the global community in the United States, who's leading the charge, have if Russia does in fact resort to chemical or even, God forbid, nuclear weapons in this case? We've been watching as, Russia has the, I would say, upper hand only because we're only reacting to what they're acting. And being in this reactive position doesn't leave us much recourse in terms of punitive measures. We've had the sanctions against Russia, we've had the verbal threats against Russia, but nothing has really stopped them in their tracks. They continue to move on. And as we're seeing day by day, there's more escalation in this fight.
If it is proven, like you said, Lisa, you can maybe just add that to continued war crimes against Russia and the Vladimir Putin regime. Now, so many refugees are fleeing the war in Ukraine. The United Nations now says close to 5 million have fled the conflict. A number of Eastern European leaders are calling on the European Union to immediately grant Ukraine an EU candidate country status. What's so significant about that?
Right. They have just filled out their paperwork to be considered for EU status. And, the European nations feel as though, well, we can't include them in NATO because that's a no-no. That will be the most, that will heighten and escalate things to a place that we don't want to, because that's the Achilles heel of the Russian government, is to have Ukraine join NATO. So the only protective measure that the European nations can give Ukraine without upsetting or further upsetting the Russians would be to include them in the EU. And that will, at least bring them into the community of nations economically, militarily, and otherwise. And, with regards to the 5 million number, I mean, it's astounding to look at these up close, the number of children and families being uprooted from their homes. And we don't talk about the side effects of all of this for the European nations that are surrounding Ukraine. As these refugees are moving into Western Europe, we know that Poland has said that they are busting at the seams. They can no longer accept any more refugees because they can't absorb them. It's just a matter of logistics, and the numbers are too high for these small European nations to absorb. We know that countries like the United States and Israel have agreed to take in more of refugees. I'm sure there are other nations. I'm sure that Canada as well is included in the list of nations that will be absorbing some of these refugees. 5 million, it's just an astounding number, and it will take a long time before they're settled and well absorbed into their new countries.
Has the Biden administration also said how many refugees they would potentially welcome into the United States?
More recently, they have said that they'll take another 100,000. Now, if you take these numbers and you compare them to the millions that have already come through the southern border here in the United States from Latin America without being vetted, the number of terrorist elements and other nefarious elements that have come through our southern border without any vetting. Again, I keep reiterating, no vetting, no COVID testing, nothing. But if you want to fly in from Canada, if you take a short trip from, the United States into Canada for a nice short holiday, you need a COVID test to come back in. But from the southern border, border. We have absorbed, I think, up to 3 million in the past year. It's a bit over that number. So, when you put that next to the 100,000 that we've pledged to take in, and I'm not advocating for taking in more and more immigrants if we can't properly absorb them, but I just think, to put them side by side, it's a telling number. You have, again, other countries that are much smaller than the United States that are taking in a larger number when you do the side-by-side comparisons with their population and their ability to absorb these refugees.
Lisa, pressure is mounting on U.S. President Joe Biden to visit Ukraine after his administration said it was considering sending a senior official to the embattled country. Now, is that really a good idea with so many volatile regions in Ukraine right now?
I could make a joke about this senior official going, so of course, President Biden being the number one choice, but it's interesting, right? Because now they're talking about sending someone over to Ukraine. President Zelensky in Ukraine is extremely happy about this. He said whether or not the president will be safe, well, we know that it's a risk, but that he would really like for President Biden to make a visit and to see what has happened on the ground there. Yes, of course, it would be a very symbolic visit. It would be a very important visit. But we saw how Kamala Harris's trip out to Poland went, and it was not good PR. And we're coming up on midterm elections here. The Democrat Party in the United States trying to clean up its act. I don't know if it would be a good move for them to send over President Biden, who has made so many gaffes and so many mistakes. And I feel badly about his age and the fact that they're calling him senile, and he's making a lot of mistakes that point to that. But I don't know if it would be a good move for the Democrats to send him over. But of course, again, the Ukrainians and many of the cabinet members here in the United States think that if they were going to send a senior member of our government, then it should be the president.
We just had Easter, and Passover continues here. Now, there were more clashes at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's oldest city, Lisa, and there are reports that Iran is promising new support for radicalized Palestinians. This cannot sit well with Israel.
Yeah, this is upsetting. Obviously, every year we expect this around this time, but this year in particular, as Ramadan and Passover and Easter collide in one weekend, you have all three religions, which would be a typically beautiful thing, right? To have the major religions of the world celebrating their spring holidays in the same weekend, to show the unity, to show that monotheistic religions do share that common root. And instead, there were clashes at the Temple Mount, fighting, throwing of rocks. I mean, these are observant, so-called observant Muslims who have gone to mosque or gone to the to the area where they make pilgrimage for the holiday of Ramadan, and instead they are taking rocks and throwing them at buses of Jews trying to get into that area, or throwing them at worshipers who are at the wall. It's horrific. And to have the Iranian regime watching on the sidelines and saying, we double down on our financial and military support of the Palestinians who are willing to kill Jews and willing to attack the state of Israel, well, it's very telling of what the money that the United States wants to free up and give the Iranian regime. Here we are at the 1 yard line to strike another deal at JCPOA, which is the Iran nuclear deal with the Iranian regime, and free up $90 billion. We know where that money is going. They're saying it out loud. They're saying we will pledge money to these terrorists to kill Jews. And really, it's a wake-up call to the Biden administration as to where this money will go, how Iran has not changed in its behavior or its support of global terrorism, and it's making threats against the United States' biggest ally in the region. And again, they don't flinch. They're just pushing forward and hoping that they get this Iran nuclear deal sooner rather than later.
Now, speaking of threats, Lisa, there are more reports that the Islamic State is calling on supporters in Israel to launch more terror attacks.
Yeah, this is interesting because we don't hear about ISIS so often anymore, right? So ISIS is on the run, ISIS is dead, ISIS is completely done away with. But now we're seeing ISIS has embedded itself in these terror attacks, or at least trying to claim responsibility for the terror attacks that are happening in Israel. And there's two possibilities here. The first possibility is that they are in fact trying to come back onto the scene, and what better way than to join with terrorists on the ground in Israel, whether it's Hamas or Palestinian Jihad or other lone wolf actors in Israel. Or secondly, that they just want to gain relevancy again, that they have been, kind of off the grid. And now they're saying, look, we see where the terrorist action is on the map and it's going on in Israel. So why not just say that was us, or say that we want to embed ourselves, or in this case, incite them and say, we encourage you to launch more terror attacks in Israel. It would just bring them back onto the terror scene, give them some street credibility, as they say in the terror world. And perhaps this is a way of launching again ISIS 2.0 and bringing themselves back into relevancy.
In a historic first, Israeli Prime Minister Bennett took to Twitter to announce that his country had successfully tested its newest laser interception system called Iron Beam. Now, Lisa, it's a laser beam that can apparently shoot down missiles, rockets, drones, and mortar shells. And the best part, it only costs $3.50 a shot.
It couldn't be better, right? Well, the only better scenario here would be that Israel wouldn't need such technology because it wouldn't have to fight off terrorists every day. But they do, and that's a day in the life over in Israel. And this is a new technology that the Israeli government has been testing for a while now. But Naftali Bennett, Prime Minister, announced this on Twitter. But the Iron Beam will work together with technology like the Iron Dome to fight off smaller projectiles that are coming in, as you said, like mortar shells and drones and things like that. And as you said, it only costs $3.50 a shot. So it's an easy way to fight off smaller threats. And they've already used it to test out shooting away a drone and has successfully passed its test. So they're very excited to announce this new technology, and kudos to the Israelis who work day in and day out to come up with this kind of technology to fight off these very evil threats that it faces daily.
And so affordably at $3.50 a shot. Wow. Lisa, North Korea said the country test-fired a new type tactical guided weapon system to enhance its capabilities to effectively operate tactical nuclear weapons. Pyongyang says it's part of a 5-year defense plan to bolster up its war deterrent. War with whom? Us here in the West?
Yeah, it's scary to watch what North Koreans are doing almost weekly now, making these missile tests and announcing them very, very publicly and very proudly. It tells you a lot about global leadership when you have these kinds of rogue regimes coming out so brazenly, making kinds of announcements and, thumping their chests and saying, look, we're here and we're testing our missiles and we have strategy. But we didn't hear this kind of talk when Donald Trump was in office. Instead, we had, they became pen pals, and we talked about the next meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting. That's when North Korea would come into the headlines. But now with President Biden in office, there is a palpable change in foreign policy. And you hear these countries like Russia doing what it's doing, like Iran making claims that they will take out Israel, like North Korea testing its missiles every day. So there is a truth to a strong leadership in the West leading to a stronger, more secure global environment. And that's exactly what we're seeing, a weak foreign policy coming from the White House and therefore trickling out and seeing the biggest of our enemies and the biggest rogue states making these kinds of threats against us.
Now, Lisa, a little historical fact for April the 18th. It was on this day in 1980 that Zimbabwe declared its independence from the United Kingdom.
Yes, if you sign up for the daily top 10 from the Foreign Desk, you will get daily this day in history. And in fact, this was the day that Zimbabwe claimed its independence. And we have had a statement from the State Department just a few hours ago. I got the alert on my phone. Happy Independence Day for Zimbabwe. And it's important, Hal, and I'm very happy you bring this up to celebrate various Independence Days around the world where nations like Zimbabwe and others gain their independence from imperial states like the UK. And we wish them a happy Independence Day.
Absolutely. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us once again from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
Well, the Crow's Nest Pass is a vacation and tourist destination for many southern Albertans, but the area is not just all camping, fishing, and skiing. It's been an economic driver of Alberta with mining, processing, and tourism. But what does the future look like for this valuable region of our province? Well, to discuss this and much more is Mayor Blair Painter, who joins me now from Crow's Nest Pass. Welcome, Mayor Painter. So great to have you on today.
Thank you very much, Nat.
Okay, so one of the things that we see in many regions of Alberta is communities advocating for their workforce and promoting their local advantages. So what community revitalization programs are going on right now in your area?
Well, as I'm sure you know, we do not have a major industry in our community. So it's difficult to promote a workforce advantage, but we do have a great natural advantage. As you know, our community has been preparing for local mining opportunities in the Crow's Nest Pass. And then after many studies, it's been determined that we have a housing shortage to be able to accommodate these types of things. With that in mind, we've been working on expanding and developing new homes and to fill these shortfalls. These mining ventures would employ 800 plus people. Studies have shown that we would need accommodations for at least 200 or more families that would choose to live here. These additional families would strengthen our schools, hospitals, local businesses if they are allowed to proceed. The Crow's Nest Pass is definitely open for business. As far as revitalization programs go, we've done numerous revitalization programs throughout the years in the downtown, starting with the Downtown Coleman Revitalization Program being the latest. We'll be moving forward with a similar program in downtown Bellevue area in the next while, and we're excited for that to happen.
Okay, so Mayor Painter, you were mentioning Crow's Nest Pass is open for business. It's so good to know. And you were saying that you would need to have more housing if mining were to go through. So how do you see that happening? Is that another industry that could possibly be something for Crow's Nest Pass?
Well, presently we have we've gone down that path, and we are definitely looking for more housing in our community, more on the attainable, affordable housing side for new families to start off with, and that is progressing right now. What we do need is more long-term rentals, which is something that our community struggles with, as in other small communities. So it's definitely challenging, but we're trying to address that part. So we're looking forward to that moving forward.
Sure. Are you looking to actually build more homes in that area?
Correct. Yes, we're doing infills and new subdivisions, and it's nice to see.
Yeah. Before we were talking about how Crow's Nest Pass is actually it accumulates, I guess it's 5 different communities. So what are those different communities, and what's the population right now of the pass?
The exact population, correct me if I'm wrong, we're right in around that 5,700 residents. Plus we have a shadow population, which we calculate to be roughly around 2,500. So that, it brings us up in that area between 75 and 8,000 residents of our community.
Wow. And then Blairmore and Coleman being the 2 kind of larger hubs there.
We're all, you can divide the 5 of us by 7,500, 2,500 to 3,500, depending on which community you're looking at. So
now, Mayor Painter, coal mining, of course, is such a hot topic here in Alberta. We hear so much conversation about the proposed mining on the eastern slopes of Alberta. And of course, this actually isn't limited just to the Crow's Nest Pass region, but it rather spans from the south to the north of our province. And of course, as you know, coal has been mined in Alberta for generations. But do you think that coal can continue to be mined safely in southern Alberta? Also, I'm curious too, what stance does most of your community take? Are they on the side of the miners or the anti-coal miners who wish to protect the land?
But what I can tell you is that, coal mining in Canada, period, is an ethical way to extract our natural resources. The coal that is available in our region is premium metallurgical coal. It's used for steel making. There are only 5 or 6 places in the world where this quality of coal exists. So we would be naive to say that our world, our global industry will not have a demand for steel. So it's a matter of choice. Where do you want to get the coal to make this product? Do you want to get it out of a country that has no ethics when it comes to natural resources and our environment? Or should we use our resources here in Canada where it can be mined ethically? We can look after the environment and provide a commodity that is needed on a worldwide level. So yes, I think Alberta can definitely be in this industry. We have a few existing coal mines in our region, in the south here, that have been walked away from for whatever reason throughout the years, left in undesirable environmental conditions. Moving ahead with these to bring them back into production would accommodate or would accomplish a couple different things. First of all, it would create long-term employment, well-paying jobs for the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years. And also it would address an issue that we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, which is deplorable environmental conditions left at those sites. So when these mines if they were able to start producing again, they would be forced to clean this up when they're done their project. Those governmental regulations and rules weren't in place years ago. They are in place today. So you can't do an industry like this today that you could have done, I'm going to say even 20 years ago. Things have changed. So the stringent regulations and guidelines for our environment are in place right now. And I think it can go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe can you give us an idea of the type of economic impact that your region, that something like that could have on your region?
If a new mine on an existing previously disturbed area was to take place, you're looking at roughly 800 employees to get that mine started over a 2 to 3 year period. And then once it's developed, then it's going to take about 350 to 400 employees to keep that project moving forward. So for our community, we're looking at the initial influx of around 800 people into our community. That's good for our businesses, for our hospitals, for our schools, et cetera, on a shorter term basis. And then when it actually gets into production, that we know we won't see 400 people living in the municipality of Crozes Pass. People travel these days to go to work. But it wouldn't be unrealistic that we get a quarter or a third of these people living in our community, which again, that strengthens our schools, our hospitals, our business core. We're going to see entrepreneurs come out of these people and create more businesses. So it's just a win-win economically for a community. And we have the resources here. Why don't we develop them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great picture of the economic impact. Do you think that there could be new technologies being developed that could make coal mining safer for the environment?
Well, absolutely. Why not, right? We see Teck Resources on the BC side that have inherited a water problem. And right now, Teck is global leaders in the clean water industry. They've spent billions of dollars to develop a clean water strategy and to be able to put contaminated water, clean it, and put it back into the river. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be things that pop up from time to time, and why wouldn't there be an opportunity to grow that?
No, that's awesome. Now, the natural areas for skiing and fishing, of course, are so important to the citizens of your area. Can you maybe talk about the people's connection to the land?
Well, those that are fortunate enough to live in our community can appreciate that, within a 5-10 minute walk, they're into the wilderness. And that's really important for the people who live here. And that's why they choose to live here. We have an abundance of natural recreation that we can visit on a daily basis, whether it's hiking or fishing, or we have great cross-country skiing. We have a downhill ski hill right in town. We have a swimming pool. We have an amazing golf course. Like, it can go on and on and on. And that's all within a 5-10 minute drive, or literally wherever you live in our community, a 10-minute walk and you're into the wilderness. So that's part of it.
Now, you mentioned the ski hill, so of course that's a huge attraction that's been operating for almost 100 years in the past. So we're talking the Powder Keg ski area. Some of us, we sometimes tend to forget about it, but it's right there. So what can you tell us about how this ski hill has been developed in the last several years?
Well, the Past Powder Keg Ski Hill, or PPK as we like to call it, is definitely a great asset to our community. And we are seeing growing numbers of people from all around Southern Alberta coming to our ski hill. And every year it grows and grows and grows. So, this ski hill is, I'm not going to date myself, but apparently in earlier years, there was even rope tows on this ski hill. And then it progressed to T-bar. And although we'd like to say, hey, let's put a chairlift in there, we just don't have the volumes of people so far to be able to make that work. But what we did do is we did extend the length of our lower lift a couple of years ago, just to make the ski experience more enjoyable for everybody. And one of the other things that we've done recently is change all of our sodium lighting to LED, to gain some financial benefits. A little bit cheaper to run these things than it is for high pressure sodium. So that's nice. And, I would encourage those that haven't experienced night vision or night skiing to come out and try it out, because it is totally different skiing experience.
Okay, so jumping from nature and skiing, let's talk about something else here. So the community of Coleman had an initiative to become a regional arts hub. So what changes have you seen over the last few years with that?
We did a revitalization program a couple or 3 years ago, I think it is now, in that area. And, that was spurred by infrastructure concerns and a will of our council and those that frequent the downtown Coleman to do this revitalization project there. And what we've been able to do is to promote the arts in our community and also our history of the area. So not only do we have different artist studios down there, we also have restaurants that cater to everybody. And we have the Alberta Police Barracks facility, which is right beside our museum. When was it? I think it was 2 years ago, we also installed EV charging station in that area to accommodate electric vehicles that are touring through our community. So it's a nice place to stop, charge your car, check out the museum, APB building, have some lunch, whatever, and then move on. So yeah, we're excited about that, and I think it's the people that frequent that area are really pleased with what we've done as well. We also have a Roxy Theater there, an old theater that has just recently been designated as a historic site, a historic building. And we have a group that's moving to renovate and rejuvenate that building into something along the lines of live theater. So we're looking forward to that coming to fruition in the next short while.
Mayor Blair Painter, thanks so much for joining me today. It looks like we are out of time, but it was great having you on.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
That was the mayor of Crow's Nest Pass, such a beautiful corner of our province, and we hope that you and your family will be able to enjoy the natural wonders of southwestern Alberta this summer. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for joining us.